If you're honest, how many New Years have you said this year will be different? And then by February, you're back on porn, snapping at your wife, scrolling instead of praying, and drifting instead of leading. You're not stupid. You know what you should do, but you just don't do it consistently, especially at home. Today, I want to show you with St Thomas Aquinas how a Catholic husband actually changes, not in theory, but in the real battle of porn, anger, laziness, and fear. If you're tired of New Year's resolutions that die in a week, stay with me. Here is a composite story of what I see all the time in the logs of our AI marriage coach and also in my in-person coaching. Will, I'm a practicing Catholic husband. I make good money. I'm not out cheating. I show up at Mass, but at home, I'm a mess. I keep confessing the same sins: porn, harsh tone, passive with my wife and kids. Every new year, I promise I'll change. I white knuckle for a bit, and then I crash. Why does my willpower keep failing? How do I actually become a different man? That's the right question. And in this video, we're going to walk through 1, why willpower and trying harder keeps failing you. 2, Aquinas on habit, why you really are what you repeatedly do. 3, how this plays out in your marriage, porn, anger, prayer, fatherhood. 4th, a simple 30 to 60 day plan to begin changing who you are with grace. And we'll pull in not just Aquinas, but the moral theologians Callan and McHugh, and also the older tradition about spiritual combat, because this is war, not self-help. So, first, you are what you repeatedly do, literally. Most men think like this: if I just wanted it enough, I'd change. I clearly don't want it enough. So they whip themselves with shame and then try another burst of willpower. Aquinas would say you're misunderstanding how the soul works. For him, a habit is a stable quality in your powers, intellect, will, emotions, senses, that makes certain acts easier, quicker, and more pleasant. Repeated acts form a habit. Habits shape your character. Character then makes future acts more likely in the same direction. Now that's true for the gym, it's true for your temper, it's also true for your chastity, and whether you open your Bible or your phone first thing in the morning. The church's moral tradition talks about 2 kinds of habits: acquired virtues, built by repeated good acts with God's ordinary help; infused virtues, given directly by God, faith, hope, charity, and the infused moral virtues, orienting you to heaven. Grace doesn't bypass nature, it builds on it. Callan and McHugh say very plainly that even with infused virtues, the acts of the virtues must be frequently elicited if the virtues are to grow. So in other words, even when God gives you grace, you still have to do the thing regularly. If your natural habits are wrecked, you're like a man with broken legs asking why his 100-meter time is bad. So let me ask you this: if God gave you right now every grace you've ever asked for, but you kept the same phone habits, the same bedtime, the same one more scroll, the same way of walking into your home, how long do you think it would be before you slid right back into the same sins? If the answer is not long, then the problem isn't that God has abandoned you. It's that you've built a system that makes holiness almost impossible on a Tuesday night. So let's talk about that. There's no plateau. you're always getting better or worse. So here's a gut punch for you from St. Thomas. There's no stable neutral. Every repeated act either strengthens a virtue or strengthens a vice. Every time you look at porn, you don't just mess up. You teach your imagination and your body to move in that direction more easily next time. Every time you scroll instead of praying, you train your attention to find God boring and novelty delicious. Every time you bark at your wife and then immediately justify it, that's just how I talk, you are forming the habit of injustice and anger at home. Aquinas and the manuals after him say vices can become like a second nature. So once a bad habit is fully formed, the will readily consents. Overcoming it requires greater effort and more grace. That's why you're feeling like you're fighting concrete, not air. It's also why the binge-crash cycle is so brutal. 10 great days of prayer, discipline, kindness, then one weekend of porn, laziness, rage, junk, then a week of despair and collapse. You're sprinting up a down escalator and then turning around to run the other way. So here's why your wife and kids get the worst of you. Men often say to me, at work, I'm calm, disciplined, respected. At home, I'm impatient, harsh, withdrawn. I don't get it. But actually, we do get it. You have built strong habits of self-control and justice towards bosses, clients, colleagues, because your income depends on it. But you've let yourself build bad habits of impatience, self-pity, and emotional laziness towards your wife and your children because part of you thinks they're stuck with you. So your default at home is whatever you've repeatedly done, not what you intend in your best moments. Moral theology is very simple here. In justice, your wife and children are owed more patience, more charity, more honest communication than your boss, not less. In the order of charity, as St. Thomas lays out, after God and your own soul, your wife has the strongest claim on your love as one flesh with you. So if you're more careful with your tone in a 2 p.m. meeting than you are with your tone in your kitchen, your loves are disordered. St. Philip Neri said that men are generally the carpenters of their own crosses. And many of the cold wives that I get told about are partly the constructions of their husbands. Now let's think about chastity, anger, and prayer as the frontline habits. Let's apply this to these three areas because they constantly show up in what men bring to us. Chastity is the same virtue before and after marriage. Right order in sexual matters according to your state. So if your 20s were built on porn and masturbation, you didn't get it out of your system. You built a system. You trained your imagination to wander, your eyes to scan, your body to expect pleasure on demand. Aquinas says lust darkens the mind and weakens the will. And Callan and McHugh point out that deliberately staying in near occasions of grave sin is itself a grave fault. So if your phone is still in the bedroom, you're not weak, you're being reckless with your soul. Anger in itself can be just. A father who never gets angry at real injustice is not holy, he's cowardly. But If you look honestly at your last month at home, most of what your wife and kids experience isn't righteous anger. It's a habit you've trained: the sarcastic jab, the slammed cupboard, the cold silence that lasts for days. Each time you let that run, you're not letting off steam. You are practicing a vice. Aquinas says anger is only just when it's aimed at the right thing, to the right degree, for the right end, under the rule of reason. Most of us, if we're honest, are not there. We're tired, we're proud, we feel disrespected, and we dump that on the people with the least power to walk away. So in Thomistic terms, you're building an unjust habit of anger in the home. Your nervous system learns when I feel pressure, I explode or withdraw. Your wife learns his moods run the house and I don't feel safe around him. Your children learn dad is unpredictable and we have to tiptoe around him. That's not just having a temper, that's a failure in justice towards your family and a failure in charity, because the people God commands you to love most are getting the worst of you. And scripture specifically warns husbands not to become bitter towards their wives. But sadly, that's exactly what we see in many cases. Husbands who have allowed resentment to build over years so that they become bitter and cold towards their wives. They haven't really communicated the most important things to their wives that they want to change in their marriages. And then those same men get shocked when their wives feel attacked and shut down. And then disconnection deepens in the marriage, eventually heading, in many cases, towards divorce. Regarding prayer, many of you have trained your attention for TikTok, not for God. Scopoli in the Spiritual Combat says the first rule is to distrust yourself and put your confidence in God. But that includes showing up to prayer like a soldier to his post. When you kneel and feel nothing, that is not prayer not working. That is what it feels like when a badly trained attention starts to be retrained. So here are some rules for building or breaking a habit like a man. Let's make this concrete for the next 30 to 60 days. Rule 1, strong start, small load. Pick one front line. Chastity, tone at home, prayer, or work discipline. Choose an embarrassingly small act that you can repeat daily. For example, I will do 5 minutes of mental prayer before I touch my phone. I will remove my phone from the bedroom completely. I will always greet my wife and kids warmly when I walk in, no matter how I feel. I will do 30 minutes of focused work before email or news. If you scoff at how small it is, good. That means you might actually do it. Rule number 2, no planned exceptions while the habit is young. When a habit is young, it is a sapling. Kindness to yourself is not letting the goats come and eat it. So for the first 30 to 60 days, don't plan cheat days. If you fall, get up immediately. Go to confession. Remove near occasions of sin. Tell somebody, right? Hold yourself accountable by actually involving other people that are going to help you through this. But don't build failure into the schedule. That's giving up in advance. Rule number 3, remember, every occasion is training. From now on, see your life as a gym. Wife is a bit snappy? Well, that's a rep for meekness and justice. There's a trigger on your phone? Well, that's a rep for custody of the eyes. Kids are wild at bedtime? That's a rep for fatherly firmness without rage. Dryness in prayer? That's a rep for faith and hope. Nothing is neutral. You are always reinforcing something. Now, you can't outsource your will, but you also shouldn't fight like a lone wolf. Spiritual writers say that the devil loves secrecy and isolation. So 2 simple upgrades for you. Get a good confessor and stick with him. The manuals insist that stability in direction is key. And then find one other serious guy, ideally Catholic, who knows the exact habit you're training and asks you weekly, how did you actually do? Scopoli is blunt that if you trust yourself, you've already lost. So stop pretending you're above accountability. Now, everything we've said so far is about natural habit and cooperation. But remember, God can, in a moment, infuse virtues and strength far beyond what you could achieve. Your job is to cooperate, not compete. So go to confession clearly, concretely. Name porn, masturbation, unjust anger, laziness in duty, whatever it is. Then make a firm purpose of amendment in habit terms. I will remove the phone from my bedroom. I will set a fixed time for prayer. And ask explicitly, Lord, give me the virtue of chastity, meekness, religion. Help me build the habits that fit that grace. If you fail 10,000 times, you're not a special case God can't handle. You're a man who's built the wrong habits and now needs to rebuild the right ones with God. So start today with one concrete act. Tomorrow, repeat it. And when you fall, don't crawl in the dark for 6 months. Go back to confession. Get back to your post. Now, inside Patriarchy School, this is what we work on every day. Husbands breaking porn and anger, restructuring their homes and schedules, building prayer routines that actually fit in real family life, and doing it together, not alone. So if you want other men around you, if you want structure, and also an AI coach trained on my calls in your pocket 24/7 for instant clarity, go to patriarchy.com/start and begin your free trial. 2 things before you click away. In the comments, tell me one habit you're going to train for the next 30 days. Chastity, tone at home, prayer, work. Keep it specific and small. And then send this video to one Catholic husband you know who keeps confessing the same sins and thinks he's just weak. He's not uniquely weak. He's untrained. And with God's grace, that can change this year.